And when we talk about how much we love acting and love character, well, then I better risk being me. Or else, whatever love I get, I'll still need to chase something else to find it.
Yeah, it's almost like the story we create around our character is the distance between fiction and reality. Like you
can believe that. Yeah. I believe that.
Hey there, welcome back to the DNA podcast. My name is Douglas Nyback. I'm the host of this thing, and today we have a guest who is, man, a real one, Shaun Benson. Shaun is a journeyman actor who's been doing this for longer than most people have been alive. He has had meteoric success, most recently working on series as gigantic as The Boys. He's, I think, actively filming Billy the Kid. He's been up and down in this industry so many times. He's had it all, lost it all, had it all, lost it all, had it all again, and is just this unbelievable presence of realness, of perseverance. Honestly, he's incredible. We talk about the complexities of performance. We talk about life on set. We talk about Meisner technique. He's a phenomenal Meisner teacher. We talk about addiction and recovery. Both him and I have journeys in those areas, and I've admired Shaun from afar for a really long time, and it meant the world that he agreed to come on this podcast. Google him and you'll see a list of credits as long as the friggin' Dead Sea Scrolls. And you'll know that this guy knows what he's talking about. He is, in my opinion, fearless. I feel humbled that I was able to spend this much time with him and chat with him and get to know him on such an intimate level. So I'm gonna stop talking about him and let's just get into it. Enjoy this one. This one meant a lot to me. A lot. So first off, I want to say thanks for coming on and being a part of this. You know, we're still a baby podcast, and it's a real honor to have you. And I got to say, like, I was trying to think of how to start this podcast. And
have we started, by the way?
Yeah, we started.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't want to make this about me, but so yesterday I was 800 days sober, which is.
Did you say 800?
800.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, man. And I knew I was going to get emotional right out of the gate here, and I barely know you. So a couple of years ago, we had a conversation at Camille's birthday party, Camille Stops. And I think maybe it was the second or third conversation I've ever had with you in my life. I was about not even 100 days sober at that time. And you were talking about the freedom that you felt when you got sober. And this is a very weird thing because I never reached out to you. But there were some days where it was really hard for me to not drink. And there would be times I would go on walks and I would literally be like, you know what, it's strange, but I don't know Shaun very well, but I have the feeling that if I called him right now, I have the feeling that he would just immediately support me.
100%.
And it spoke so much to just how completely your character affected me in the very limited amount of time that I've met you or known you. And I don't think I ever got a chance to say thank you for that, but like this little innocuous conversation, and you suddenly became like a lighthouse for me in some really dark times, I gotta say.
Yeah. I know you say you don't want to make this about you, but I'd way rather talk about this than what I shot in 2014, because this to me is what it's all about, right? Like a good life.
Yeah.
A good life. And I know we've talked about this, I don't remember that specific conversation, but I appreciate that, and you're welcome, and I get it, because I had these little markers in my life where I was like, so for me, it ended up being through 12-step, but I'm like, wait, that one dude, I just kind of, like, I'm just going to call him or know he exists and get me through another hour. Because what people who don't have an addiction sometimes can't understand, and God bless them for not having to deal with it, but is sometimes the mind just goes, everything that's good, everything that you love, that screen test you have tomorrow, go grab a drink.
Yeah.
And it's us doing it. Like, we're our own demon and our own angel all at once. And a friend of mine, she does like a self-help program that a lot of people have called To Be Magnetic, and she just calls it expanders. Like, you see someone who's like 8% more of something you want to be, and it lets us know we can be it too. So I had those people, and if we had to end this right now, you've made my day by letting me know I was one of those for you.
Well, I mean, man, you made more than a day for me. So it means a lot, and I think you mean a lot to so many people in this industry, and you've been in it for so long that I feel like anytime I talk about you or the people, like when I was telling folks that we had you coming on the pod, it's like everybody's got some, like the roots of Shaun Benson have touched them in profound ways. And I mean, I can't think of a better metric for a life well lived, and you're very much in the middle of Act 2, right?
Yeah.
But it's pretty great. Like I've never met anybody who has anything negative to say about you.
Well, I know that's not true, and I'm not being humble, but I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm just saying I've never met them.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Thank you. Like that does mean a lot, and that is something that wasn't always true. And it's funny you open with the addiction stuff, because like I get emotional hearing that, because I wasn't a real good person for a lot of the time, simply through the selfishness. Like I wasn't a diva on set or any of that stuff, but I just didn't know how to be present, and I didn't know how to not either make things combative or about me. It's basically childhood stuff that I modeled. Then when I had my own drinking and drugs, forget it, and there was no way to be consistent, and there was no way to be consistently who I was, because I didn't even know who that was. Now, honestly, today I don't know either, but I know a few metrics. Honesty is basically the fundamental one.
Yeah.
You can go through my phone, like what are you going to see that I'm worried about? Like, and that's part of sobriety, is the amends processes. I was talking to a friend in sobriety the other day, and this goes to the idea that people do have a decent experience with me, is we're talking about the fact that when you go through your life and you apologize face to face, or if someone set a boundary with a letter, for all your wrongdoings without ever opening up theirs, after that, I'm never worried about running into someone in the street.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about being with my wife and then bumping into an ex-lover and it being like awkward. It's like, oh yeah, I told you about her. Or if I didn't, she doesn't care, because there's no little shade. And when we have shade, even if it's not about something, people are always kind of wondering why we're inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so for better or worse, I am accessible because I don't have that guilt or shame. And that's a gift of getting sober.
Yeah.
And that directly to me relates to being hopefully a good actor.
I think you got enough references on being a good actor.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
that's
that.
Pretty proven.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. I wrecked my career with the booze and drugs, and I wasn't a great person in my 20s without being an overt asshole, just always made it about me.
Right.
So I still have that feeling of part me at age 14, feeling like no one likes me, part me in my 20s, knowing I'm fucking everything up, while being handed beautiful things. So I still vibrate a little at the idea of owning that. I do own it, but it's a practice. It's not an innate given.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of when I look at, let's say, the resume, or when I look at the people I've gotten to work with, or when I look at the young actors who are like, you're one of the real ones, I just go, okay, cool. I trust that you are saying that and mean it. I've always hoped to be. I went to theater school with Phil Riccio and Aaron Poole, who are just both brilliant actors.
Yeah.
And all we craved was, when I say greatness, I don't mean like magazine covers. I do want that still, and I love when that happens.
Yeah.
I just mean like doing a part that can affect somebody. My life was changed as a kid through watching TV and film, music as well, and utterly changed. And it sounds so typical, but it's so true. Like there's worlds that make me feel okay. And even if it's Jack Tripper in Three's Company, like John Ritter's one of the greatest actors ever. He would never have gotten an Oscar if they did a movie at Three's Company, but who could do what he does better?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's those sorts of things where if then somebody goes, I got that from you in this, that's the greatness.
Yeah, there have been a lot of times in my life where I have been at my darkest and I found myself at a movie theater. And it's like without even realizing that I was at an edge, it's like showed me I'm at an edge, and it's allowed me to take some steps back. And that is the intangible way that people within like our realm of creativity can make huge impact on people.
So 2018, my mom died and an 8-year relationship ended. So I drove down to LA just to disappear. Like, I can't handle being in Toronto. The routines are too familiar and painful. Yes. So I get down to LA, Endgame comes out. I can't remember when. The next year.
Avengers Endgame, yeah.
So I'm sitting in the front row alone at a matinee, because I love going to movies alone, and I sit way closer than any of my friends want to sit, and I'm just staring at the screen. And I forgot how the one before ended, so I'm sitting there, and literally, it opens with half of the people on the planet are gone.
Yeah.
And here I am with my mama gone, the woman I spent all my days with gone. I just cried for 3 fucking hours straight. It was one of the most important cathartic experiences I've ever had in terms of recovery from pain. Because I was just like, I'm not alone. The writers get this. The metaphors in here are not, this isn't just about superheroes, you know, whatever you think of these Marvel movies, like these projects, they emanate out because I remember once reading that the more generically you try and write about a river to connect with the most people, the least number of people you'll connect with. Write about the river you know. Write about how it felt when your feet went in the stones in Guelph at that little bend. Everybody will have their version of it, and the depth of your description will help them relate. And that's when I watch a movie like that, and I'm just bawling. It's like, somebody involved in this knows about great loss and knows about, in a fun way, or you know, whatever you want to call it, dramatically fun way, how to have that catharsis. And it's an overused word when we're trying to intellectualize it, but it's the most important word with what we're talking about, which is, I feel connected to that. I'm a human, I'm alone in a theater, I feel alone in the world, but I'm not.
Yeah, and I think going back to that concept of authenticity and the concept of like the universality of human experience, I think that more and more I'm seeing young actors try to predict what others want from them, as opposed to being like, no, you contain everything everybody else does. That idea of stepping into the river where you are, because that's going to feel like the river where everyone else is. I think that is such an important lesson, and going within. I was talking to Bree about this, how the sort of principles of actors are becoming really good at being like, who is my character, without ever spending time and asking, who am I? What do I believe as a person? Where are my value systems taking stock of where they are in life?
This is all I care about as an artist. It's all I care about. So I told you, like, I just came from the hospital. My dad's there. He's going to be fine, but it's rough, and he's had a lot of health stuff. And my wife was like, oh, you know, you could cancel. I was like, fundamental to how I believe we got to move through this life is who we are, where we are. It's all we've got. And you know, when I teach acting, and also myself when I'm on set, but when I teach, I have the students do a check-in at the beginning of every class. And we go around and I just say, look, you can say nothing, you can say whatever you want, you can talk about acting, you can talk about anything. And I've been teaching for about 15 years, and one night I said to the students about 8 years ago, I said, listen, we're a little busy with the work I want to do tonight, so we're going to skip the check-in. At the end of class, like 8 students were standing there looking at me going, if you ever skip the check-in again, we're mutinying. We need that. Because the way I frame it is, A, we're all in this together. So the fact that we're sharing who we are and what's going on, we don't really chip in on each other's shares, you know. You just say what you need to say and what you want to say to check in. So we're all in this together. You and I could audition for the same part today, but your motor and mine are so different.
Totally different.
And here we are, we're thinking the same thoughts, and we're connecting on a very specific level, and we always do, but our motor is totally different. No one would want to date you and me. It'd be either or, because we're so different, right? So when you put it in terms of auditioning, it's the same thing. Like, energetically, this chemistry is the vibe. You can be the best person in Toronto for the job, and they still won't give it to you, because they're like, he's the one if we had, but it doesn't feel quite right. I've been that guy, and I've been the guy who gets the call when they screen tested 8 other people because they couldn't find it. So this goes back to the second part of the check-in, which gets more to specific expression, which is, if I'm going to imagine my way into a committed moment, then not everybody uses their imagination. Some people use memory, some people use nothing at all, but I like imagination. So if I'm going to today imagine myself into a great moment or a shitty moment, it's what's going on with me today. That's all I can draw upon. What was giving me joy a week ago won't give me joy today, because it's a different day. Doug, I wake up with a new fear every day. It's usually a version of no one loves me. And I wake up with a new joy every day, which is a version of how the f am I this lucky, gratitude. But they're all very flavoredly different. And so if I try and tap into yesterday's fear today, I'll be replicating a thing that isn't true anymore. So this goes back to who you are, where you are. And it's like, we're just all in this together, so let's not be competitive. It's an art.
Well, it's interesting because we're not. We're only in, like, the way you just described it, it's like we are only ever in competition with ourselves. And what a useless competition that is. Like, just try to be better. Like, just grow.
Neil McDonough, he's a dear friend of mine. He's a pretty well-known actor.
Sorry, who
Neil McDonough?
Yeah,
and if people don't know his name and they look him up, they'll be like, of course, that guy. So back in the late 90s, he'd shot a couple pilots, but he hadn't hit yet because Band of Brothers was his coming out, and he hadn't done that yet. And we were down in LA. I know him through my family since I was a kid. We were having a coffee, and I was like 20 or something. We're very young. And I was like, so what's your deal, man? Like, what's your take on all this? And he goes, I can't do what you can do, but you can't do what I can do. So I better be the fucking best at doing what I can do. And if you look at that guy's career, very successful, he does what he does best.
Who's he playing Band of Brothers again?
I don't remember the character names.
Spot.
He was wonderful on it.
Yeah.
It's funny, I just watched it for the first time like
just
last year.
it,
Yeah, I didn't watch it when it came out because I was up for one of the roles and I didn't get it. And when I was younger, I would be mad at a project for not hiring me, and I'd be like, damn. And I had trouble enjoying work that I was close to getting. I don't have that anymore, but it took a while to shed.
Because I've never known you as that guy, so it's so interesting to even just like
No, not at all.
Yeah,
it's just a celebration now.
That's something that came to me. I've been trying to meditate every day this year. My therapist was like, you should meditate, and for like I'm in therapy for 7 years. She's been telling me to meditate, and finally this year I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should fucking meditate. And one thing that came to me recently was this idea of like, oh, like anybody who has grievances with me in the past, like have grievances with a completely different guy. Like we are at the end of the day, like that version of you.
100%.
You know, and it's like that concept, because I didn't 12-step, like I just kind of quit, and in a lot of ways I kind of wish I had done the 12-step. It's not like I couldn't go to it, but I feel like I'm past the need. And so I didn't do that amends process. And for me, it was much more about finding forgiveness within myself, which I think probably is the purpose of a lot of the purpose of the amends process anyway.
Setting down the weight.
Yeah, but like that idea of like, oh, that's a different guy. It's like the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's like that applies to ourselves as well.
There's that Mitch Hedberg joke where he's like, someone shows me a photo and said, this is me in the past. And he's like, every photo's a photo of you in the past. Like, this is a little esoteric, but I love this concept. Yeah. As we're talking, the Doug I'm seeing is already in the past because the time it takes the light to hit, bounce off you to my eye, it's a split second. But I'm still not visually perceiving you. And by the way, this is why people talk about vibes or behavior. You know, that's the more important one, the intangible. Yeah. And like I say, we both look well enough the same that in a classical sense, we audition for the same roles, but that intangible is going to be different. And even the idea of being in competition with myself, like that's something not just sobriety, but therapy and meditating and my martial arts. I hit a moment about 10 years ago where I went, these aren't new tools to beat yourself up over the head with, Shaun. You've done that for long enough.
Right.
These are tools to free yourself from that paradigm.
That word freedom, when Bree and I were talking about you, obviously going into this podcast, I said, I'm like, it's going to be so interesting to talk to Shaun because I feel like he is perhaps one of the most free people that I know.
I appreciate that.
It's pretty great. Like, and it seems like it's true. I mean, within reason, but
within reason, it's entirely true, Doug.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my whole paradigm was, I just want to dance through life and get away with a little bit here and there. Now, it was to a fault because I believed that rules didn't apply to me. So I got fired from jobs that I was very good at doing, but I wouldn't do like the module they needed me to do. And I was like, well, I'm already this good at lifeguarding. They don't. And then it's like, no, that's a requirement of the job, Shaun. So I had to learn how to face reality. Right. And I have a great phrase that a friend gave me, which is, you can argue with reality all you want, but it will always win. And the one that I came up with is the distance between my reality and fantasy is the size of my pain.
Sorry, do you mind saying more about that?
100%. First off, my need for fantasy, going back to childhood, comes from, I'll talk about my childhood a bit because I think this is really important, is as a kid, I don't know how to process the adult drama and trauma that's happening in front of me. I'm 5 years old. Right. I have no framework to understand what this, there was a lot of good stuff in my childhood, but what this aggression, what this screaming, what any of it is, including drinking. So what I do is I have a great need to escape. Mm-hmm. I can't go to the neighbors. I don't know how to do that. I can't speak up. No one's listening. So I go to fantasy. Yeah. So first, the beginning of the need for fantasy is born of pain because reality hurts. Right. So then as I get older, what was a genius operating system? For a 5-year-old Shaun to solve that house and that environment such that he can thrive, God bless it. Like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
But eventually, what was a survival mechanism becomes an operating tool, let's say in my 20s.
Yeah.
And now I'm exiting to fantasy when reality would suffice. Because I've got a habitual nature. I don't know that it's my nature, but it's just one notch above, because it starts day one of existing in that home, is all of a sudden, wait, this can only become a tool. It can't be your operating system anymore. And I think that's a big thing. That's why I get excited about this idea. There's operating systems and tools. And far too often we take something that should be a tool and we make it an operating system.
Yeah.
Now, as a 5-year-old age, brilliant operating system. As we get older, if you think about it, that's the 80s for me. Try running a computer with an 80s operating system.
Yeah.
You'd be insane to think that could do anything.
Yeah.
But psychologically we do that. And I think a lot of us who are actors can relate to this, because the fantasy is something we're so good at. Yeah. Not everybody, and some people for different reasons, but a lot of people can relate. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, this once gave me an escape. But in my experience, then when you become an adult, it's just your life. And so now you're living in this fantasy, but the reality is you're in a 1-bedroom apartment, you haven't really booked a lot, you're having trouble with your bills, you don't love your job, but you picture yourself on billboards every day. And this is actually where I think a lot of manifesting stuff can be harmful, because you're creating the size, and eventually reality will hit. And all of a sudden the pain of that will be almost unbearable. Now, if you're like me, you'll turn to booze and drugs and it'll stave it off for a while,
Yeah.
but then you're actually making the distance greater. And
Yeah.
the reason I don't love manifesting culture, I always say to my students, I say, can you picture yourself on the billboard right next to Chateau Marmont on Sunset Strip as the lead of a project?
Right.
If you can, for real, that's all the manifesting you need to get the fucking work.
Yeah. Do you believe it's possible?
That's right.
Actually believe
Actually, if you can't, call a therapist tomorrow, tell them, hey, I have an upper limit problem I want to work with you on.
Right.
And then get to fucking work.
Man, if I'd met you when I was in my 20s.
If I'd met you when I was in my 20s, I wasted so much time learning this.
Guy, yeah, me too.
So much time.
So hearing you talk about your childhood, first off, thank you for sharing it. Second, I would say in my life, I've been addicted to 2 things, and one is bourbon and the other is stories. I wrote my first novel when I was in 3rd grade. It was a terrible spy novel called Spy Tech, spelled with a K, and I just learned how to curse, so it was just full of curses.
Spy Tech with a K
places.
sounds like it has legs.
It was pretty cool.
I think you should dust that off, man.
But I forced myself to handwrite a full page of like loose leaf every night for 120 nights, because and of course I go into therapy and I realize, like, my therapist is like, oh, that's an interesting age to develop that superpower. Yeah. And I realized that because there was so much in my home, predominantly around my brother, who, bless his cotton socks, is just trying to live his life the best way he can.
Exactly.
Dealing with his own demons.
And can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, please.
What a healthy place to be when we can go, while that might have sucked, that's just some human trying to get through their day.
Yeah.
You know, no one's cutting me off in traffic. They're just trying to get ahead.
Exactly.
And we can victimize ourselves, or we can go, that hurts, I might need to set a boundary, but that motherfucker is just going through this shit, like we have. Yeah. Anyways, I just want to throw that out, because even the way you say that about your brother is a very generous place. Yeah.
I mean, it took me a while to arrive there, but yeah, no, thank you for saying so. And so I found story as a means to, I found fiction as a means to protect myself. I could control fiction, and then I created a fictional version of myself that ultimately I aspired to be and was constantly disappointing myself. And I got addicted to that story, and then I could never be that guy, which meant I constantly had to take the edge off of my own perceived failure, which led me to Sweet Lady Bourbon.
Dude. And I only started drinking bourbon at the end, and it's the one thing I'm like, damn, I wish I found it was fancy whiskeys earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
I could have at least had a run on them. So you said something about trying to be a certain guy and then not achieving it.
Yes.
So I don't mind if this sounds egoic, but I did achieve who I wanted to be. Like, I had this ability as a kid where I'd be like, what's that dusty award in the shelf?
Yeah.
And in my high school, it'd be the award for whoever got the most grades or this or that.
Yeah.
And I was able to achieve it. Like, I was very good at sports. I could be the captain. I got, I could win top marks. I would go to summer camp and be like, what's that dusty old award? Like, we had awards going back to like 1919. I'd be like, I want my name on that trophy for no reason, Doug.
Right.
Like, I didn't want necessarily to do the thing. I just wanted to be on the trophy. And so what happened was I was able to execute at a high level. I had a lot of energy and was pretty good at sports in school.
Yeah.
And the hollowness I felt, and this includes booking a lead on my first TV show.
What was your first?
It was called The Associates.
Okay.
And it was a law series. And when I look back on it, God, it was wonderful. The show had its ups and downs, et cetera, but it was such a wonderfully scripted show. 5 young leads, and we were all lawyers at a firm, pretty straightforward associates. But the way they wove relationship drama with legal drama was a gift. And I realized how few shows balance that so well. But the thing is I'd craved this thing for so long.
Yeah.
Now, I do love acting, and I did love acting. Although, to be fair, at age 25, when I booked this, I didn't really know how to do it. Even though I'd been to theater school, even though I'd been a lead of many plays with good reviews, I still didn't know what I was doing. Sure. So in any case, I booked this part. The CTV press machine was wonderful. So I'm on Mike Bullard, I'm on Good Morning AM Canada, we're on TV Guide cover. Didn't feel good. I was like, wait, I thought I was supposed to feel something now.
Yeah, this should be the arrival point.
Right,
yeah.
And it was, especially when you're a young actor and you're the first of your crew to pop, everybody's now looking at you like you have an answer. It's really natural. But I didn't have any answers, and I didn't, going from theater where you're working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day like this.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Even if the play's shit, this is beautiful. Mm-hmm. You go to set, I might shoot 2 days a week because it was 5 leads. I'm getting paid way more, and then you'd finish a scene, you're drenched in tears. They're like, can you do another take without the tears? And then you do one kind of hollow, and they go, great, moving on. Bank of Lights comes on, 2 p.m., and you're just sitting there going, this is it, this is this?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the booze coming as a sense of maybe failure. For me, it came after these successes. Okay. I had tendencies all through my teens and 20s, but when I booked that show, and it didn't do for me what I thought it should do. But when I was downtown at the cool bar where Naomi Campbell's, doing drugs off the counter, and I slapped the dealer 5, he gives me the bag, I give him the 40, that felt the way the TV show was supposed to feel. That felt like I've arrived. Oh, it was especially these drugs are designed to make you feel that way, but even before I did them, it was like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be. And basically that became a 7, 8, 9 year run of unsustainable craving of that first feeling before the drug was even in my body. Whoa. Because it felt like I belong. And this is something, and I really want to speak to young actors out there right now. Shooting TV is fucking boring. Action to cut is wonderful. Other than that, you're just kind of hanging around. It doesn't always have that communal sense. It's just doing this, but without even a guided convo around it. You have to maintain some version of energy for what's coming up, but it's not that much throughout a 12 or 15 or 16 hour day that you're actually doing the thing you want to do when you really break it down. Then if you're not in every scene, you pop in a bit here, you pop in a bit there. If you don't have a life outside of acting that you would rather do than the day on set, I don't mean the scene work, that can be its own height. You might get into trouble because you're going to seek the thing that you're not getting elsewhere.
Right.
I know that was my experience. I remember talking to James Caan about that. And he goes, I was the #1 actor in the world for a sec.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go but down. And then you're not the guy that week. You're still one of the guys, but you're not the guy. Well, you need to feel like the guy, and usually that comes in a very quickly available change of state form. It can be women, it can be gambling, it can be something to make you care in a way. So when I say that set's boring and I look down the barrel of the lens, it really is. I'm not being cute or clever. I got to shoot my first movie with Liam Neeson, and he was literally my age when we were shooting, and I was like, do you still love it? Like we were sitting having wine at lunch, and he goes, Shaun, action to cut. It's better than ever, but the rest of this shit, I can do without it. And I get why he said that. He's away from his wife. He's away from his kids. Yeah. He's just sitting in a trailer with me. We got along, but that's not what he really,
Yeah.
And then action to cut, I watched him light it up every time, but it's still, he was one of the leads. Not that much of the 3.5 month process.
Yeah.
And for me, that's martial arts and relationships. Like, there's nothing I love more than a coffee and a chat and my martial arts. I'm going off to Calgary to shoot season 3 of Billy the Kid, which I've been so excited about. This show's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about my character. The arcs they've been giving me is beautiful. The execution we've been able to do is beautiful. Yes, it's boring in between takes, even with great guys out there.
Yeah.
But I also go, I have to put my jiu-jitsu membership on hold and stop fighting in my karate classes. Like, I love that I'm bothered when I book a gig.
Yeah.
And until I got there, I don't think I had a truly healthy career.
It's really interesting because there's the Stoic principle of seek better problems. Solutions to problems lead to better problems. Solutions to those problems become better problems. And I think that really encapsulates that, which I quite like. And it's so interesting. So you talked about jiu-jitsu. You talked about like sitting and connecting. It seems as though human connection is like a very important thing to you.
It might be the most important thing.
And is this something that once you got sober, did you discover these things right away? Was there I'm curious, was there something that you replaced it with?
So when I got sober, I started dating a girl at 15 days sober, which is generally not recommended, There's no rules. I mean,
good for you, but damn.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman.
Yeah.
An actress named Laura Harris. Look her up. She's divine. When I met her, most famously, she was season 2, 24, and was just like gifted actor.
Yeah.
And we got along beautifully, but I was in no place to get along beautifully with anybody because I did not know who I was. I was intensely pulpy, and I had gone from...
Sorry, intensely pulpy?
Pulpy, yeah, had no spine, had no sense of self.
Okay.
So I just wasn't a good partner. I wasn't in a place to be a good partner. But my point is that, during the time I was with her, I kept going to meetings. I was hitting therapy hard. But we also went and trekked the Himalayas in Bhutan. We went down and rode horses for a month around extinct volcanoes in Ecuador, in these areas that, even though they're lower elevation than Everest, they're closer to the sun because of the way the earth bulges, eating only food from the hacienda, preserved. I was basically went to Japan and, toured around monasteries. It was this craving, reading Thich Nhat Hanh and, reading Eckhart Tolle and just not knowing anything but pouring everything in because I was so empty.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a great boyfriend. That relationship didn't last, although we're still dear friends. But that early period was just self-pity and seeking. Self-pity and seeking.
Yeah.
I went broke in sobriety, not from using. I went 3 years without booking more than 2 days.
No shit.
Here I am. I want to make a t-shirt that says I'm 30 days sober, where's my 3-picture deal? Because that's how I felt. Doug, I'd only shot series leads and blockbusters until I f***ed it all up. Then I get sober, and I can't get more than 2 days on a friend's movie that I shot as a local. It cost me more to shoot than I made, but I was at least working again in 3 years of early sobriety. Now, Laura at the time was wonderful. She just goes, Shaun, I know you want these parts, and God, you're a good actor, but this is a gift. And I didn't want to hear that. I probably got real mad when she said that. But it was. For 3 years at age 32, and I stress 32 because I think in our 20s, no matter how fully we're living, I don't know a lot of people, maybe there's someone out there, who are able to integrate it into who they are. And the best way I've heard it described is you're just throwing a bunch of shit in your backpack. You're walking through the world and the world's giving you, you're taking it. It's beautiful, it's exciting. And then in our early 30s, we dump the backpack out, whether we try to or not, and we just go, what did I get? What is this?
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that most of us are with our parents. We're like 17 or 18, if we're lucky, to be honest, because anyone who leaves early probably had a rough time. But that 10 years is a real linear push-pull of, I'm like my parents, no, I'm not. F you, mom and dad. I love you, mom and dad. But after about 10 years of living on our own in big cities, seeking dreams, we start to emerge. And then it takes another bumping around before we go, wait, who the f am I?
Yeah.
And so for me at 32 to 35, I got to just sit in sometimes a 12-step meeting a day, if not 2. I then got to, I was training as an actor, but I wasn't doing much. I built a photo biz that, helped sustain me. I've been shooting photos since I was a kid.
I was playing in a photographer.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I was playing in a rock band in LA.
Who have shot with
I
you, and your
love
work is
shooting.
beautiful. Yeah.
Honestly, it's teaching that took me away from shooting. Otherwise, I'd be shooting. I love the teaching a little more. Dude, I was in a rock band in LA for 3 years, and we like almost got signed and like played up and down the Sunset Strip. I was not acting.
I love that you got sober and were like, I should be in a band.
Dude, it was like the guys in my band were not sober.
No, of course
I was
they
in the
weren't.
Viper Room, okay? We were playing the Viper Room, Johnny Depp's Viper Room.
It's like, oh man,
yeah.
it's like your credit card is maxed out as a 4-year-old and you get dropped in the middle of Toys R Us. Like, are you nuts?
No, Doug, for real, I was like 30 days sober. We're playing the Viper Room. The last time I'd been in the Viper Room, I had 4 needles loaded inside my leather jacket. 2 with heroin, 2 with cocaine, because I knew the Viper Room was a little busy, so it was tough to load up your needle in the bathroom.
Jesus Christ.
That's the last time I'd been at the Viper Room, and then all of a sudden I'm here, on stage in a band. The guys in my band were very respectful. They knew I was sober, but they're half the reason I stayed sober. They were wonderful. But they also...
what a blessing.
They
that
weren't.
is. Holy.
They're just having some whiskey at the bar or whatever. I remember one night calling my sponsor. I was out on Sunset Strip, and I was like, told him the story of when I'd last been there and blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, you don't need to play. He goes, there's nothing more important than your health to you tonight. He goes, do you think you're going to drink or do drugs there? I said, well, no, I just feel... He goes, remember, we can go into odd environments or ones that we used to do one thing and do another if we're there to be of service. And it sounds to me like playing great music for a bunch of people is being of service. And I was like, that feels right. It was right. Yeah. And I was able to play in that band in some of the grungiest spots in LA with people doing the grungiest shit and not feel like a relationship with what they were doing because of that conversation with him, which is, I'm just up here being of service. And what's interesting, and when you say people speak nicely of me, it all comes to that fundamental concept of service, which is, like when I teach acting, I just say, listen, you don't need to agree with me. You can tell me to fuck off, take what you like and leave the rest. Go take other people's classes. I'm just here for these 4 hours to offer you everything I know, and I'll give you notes that you can agree with or not, and that's it. Please don't follow me. Just try what I'm suggesting. Yeah. You paid for it, but just steal. It's for fun and for free.
It's a very healthy way to teach.
I think so. I think so. The problem is, it's like that Denzel Equalizer 3 when he's like, are you a good man or a bad man? And he's like, I don't know. And the guy's like, that's why I trust you. The problem is it can be used as a manipulation. When you're like, you know there's even teachers like, don't follow me. Don't follow me. And you're like, you skeezy bastard.
Like the musical theater person at a party, don't make me sing.
Yeah.
So this concept of being, this concept of being of service, is that something that you've always had, or is that something that came to you in sobriety?
I was
very interesting.
I had to learn how to live.
Yeah.
You know, I know we're talking way more about sobriety than acting, and I'm glad. I literally didn't know how to live, Doug.
Yeah.
I was an adult. I made easily $1 million by the time I was 30. I had sports cars, pretty girlfriends, and like was a black belt in karate. Like it wasn't just about getting stuff. Yeah. I did not know how to be polite. I did not know how to look someone in the eye and listen while they spoke. Right. Sometimes I would, but I didn't know how to functionally do it. When I got sober, I had to call my sponsor and be like, so I'm taking this girl on a date. Like, what do I do? I didn't know how to date.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about the fantasy thing we were talking about earlier, and when you mentioned freedom, I always wanted and have chosen a very free life. But that's where a lot of the selfishness has come in. And so I had to learn how to blend those two. Yeah. And it's funny because I do a TikTok page and sometimes it gets pretty political.
It gets very political. And I fucking admire the shit out of it. I try to stay out of politics on TikTok and I see yours and I'm like, this is fearless.
It's funny. It's this other world, but people will be like, dude, get a job and get out of your robe midday. And I'm like, do you understand how hard I've worked to have a life where I can be in my robe midday? Like that's the joy of this freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and currently I enjoy financial freedom and I'm always willing to do the work it takes to change that. Yeah. My wife and I have wonderful freedoms with each other. I mean, especially even with traveling, like she'll just be like, hey babe, I think I want to go to Bali next month. I'm like, great. She's like, you want to come? I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that trip. And then I'll be like, hey babe, I want to go to LA for like 3 weeks and write. There's a hotel there that just feels like it's the 70s and I'm, you know, Bukowski and I'm doing something interesting or Tom Waits or whatever. And she's like, great, come home with something cool. So there's this freedom even in my relationships, but it was ironically born out of commitment and respect.
Yeah.
When I was younger, the freedom was always like, you're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
When I was older, you know, the greatest freedom I know is to be able to meet my responsibilities. I had to learn that.
Greatest freedom I've ever known is to meet my responsibilities. That's. Do you mind if I interject for a hot take or add my take to that? Just because it seems like you were in the middle of something. I don't want to.
Please interject. I'll never stop.
So every morning I go and I walk my dog, and every morning since I've gotten sober, I've started with a prayer. We live right across the street from a church, Catholic church. I'm not Catholic, but I grew up, Christian.
I don't want to interject, but have you found you have more room for religion, even if you're not religious?
I have found
because I have.
I have found
I appreciate why people want it and need it.
There was a hole in me that I filled with alcohol,
Amen.
and as soon as I let go of the alcohol, there was room for God, and I started praying, and God started talking back, and that didn't happen until I was sober.
The size of my craving was really just the size of my need for a God.
That's fascinating. It's so fascinating because I didn't do the 12-step program, and to a degree I was like, I don't the religious angle of it doesn't. And then like what actually happened was I started praying more and I started hearing some back. So found its way to me. Yeah. And it's beautiful. But I pray every morning. I say thank you for, as I'm walking my dog, I say thank you for the sunset, thank you for my feet on this earth, thank you for my dog, and I ask, please help me be of service. Being of service, and I think the thing that changed the most for me, and it took me the better part of 2 years, I think, of sobriety to get to a place where, talking about freedom, for you is the freedom to meet your responsibilities, and this is why I interjected, was I finally started being able to trust myself, and that, and all of the sudden that freed up so much. Like I felt free because I was no longer in a place where I was filled with self-doubt because I wasn't lying to myself every day.
The other thing too, and I just want to be real clear, and I will look and say this, I want to get paid, I want to get laid. Like these things aren't gone.
No, yes.
But I realized that the way it was happening was unfulfilling. I was getting paid, getting laid, and I was like, why doesn't this feel good? Yeah. And it goes back to what you said about trying to be a certain person. I was trying to execute a version of a life so that even when it worked, I wasn't the one inhabiting it. It's like tricking someone into loving you by presenting a version of yourself that you know will be appealing to them. Yeah. And as a people pleaser, you get pretty good at it. And then it's like, wait, why when I'm even getting the response I'm trying to solicit, doesn't it feel good? And it's like, well, they're not loving the authentic you. Yeah. And this goes right back to acting, or if anything, the acting's the surface, and this is the real part, is that if I'm not the one doing it, it will always have a veil between it. And so when I say I want to get laid and paid, I'm not just trying to be provocative. I still love those goddamn things. I love the earthly delights. You know, I'm some version of a hedonist for sure. I'm always buying new watches and sports cars and shit because we do live on this plane, and the feeling of a certain guitar's neck is different than another guitar's neck. And you know, a first kiss on the neck is just like heaven. So I'm not going to pretend I'm Buddha and don't still want that. Yeah. But what I've learned is that the surrender of the need, which is always a process, because at least one day a week I wake up craving in a way that feels unhealthy. And those are the days I can't go on Insta because it's not about DMs or anything. I just know that I'll be jealous when I see that actor who I adore posting because I'm in a vulnerable place. Yeah. I just woke up vulnerable that day. And it's like, okay, brother, all good. Not the day to be doing comparison as thief of joy. But so the point is, when I surrender to service, ironically, all those things show up anyways, but they're for me. And that's the hardest faith I've ever learned, is that I'm enough. Yeah. And as an actor, if you and I are doing this scene and I start adding all these layers of character and backstory, I don't trust that I'm enough. Now, I might need to throw an accent on or throw on a limp. That's costume. Yeah. That to me isn't character. And this is, let me pivot a little to acting because I think this is a good moment to do it. This won't work for everybody, but for me, when I stopped even considering character, because the way I thought about it, let's say I build a great version of Hamlet with backstory and what do others say about me and what do I say about myself? These aren't not useful ideas, but I was always trying to get there without ever getting there. Here was Hamlet in the center of the room, this gorgeous platonic sculpture of an ideal performance. Yeah. And then me trying to execute. And it was always thin. And then when I first did the Meisner, literally night one, teacher's like, so you just see what's opposite you and you repeat it. And this was one of these teachers who, because of my resume, put me in the advanced class. So I was with really good people at the gate. And I was like, so I just see what I say, even if it's shitty. She goes, especially if it's shitty. And immediately it was just like, I am the one who wants to fight this chick. I'm the one who wants to fight this chick. I'm the one who's scared of how she's seeing me right now. there's never been a veil. I haven't always been good, but I've never been bad since that. Because that night, it was just me at all times. I can't count as Hamlet. I can just count.
Yeah.
And if I happen to have a Danish or British accent, the audience will now consider that a character. And that goes back to the idea of the life, which is if I'm sitting with a woman or a buddy and I'm trying to get a feeling, well, the trying, by its very nature, will create a veil. Mm-hmm. The being, and then them leaning forward, is the reciprocity that will be fulfilling. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest moments in my childhood, my first best friend was named Laura Gifford. And I mean, she knew me when I was 0. She was 4 years older and she lived a house over. When I was like 3 years old, I'm cutting across the Silvestro's backyard and she's walking and we bump into each other. And I was like, hey, I was just coming to hang out with you. She goes, I was just coming to hang out with you. That's the greatest feeling I know.
That, I mean, it's interesting. It's like hard to catch up to that idea of like two people just wanting to be present with each other.
Yeah.
That's...
You ever dropped a DM to get a response, and when you get it, it doesn't feel good?
Yeah.
Because it's solicited.
Yeah.
And soliciting stuff, especially when it comes to business, brilliant. Soliciting for a fun night, brilliant. But soliciting for, when I say love, I don't mean romantic, although it can include it, I think that'll always come up short. And when we talk about how much we love acting and love character, well, then I better risk being me. Or else, whatever love I get, I'll still need to chase something else to find it.
Yeah, it's almost like the story we create around our character is the distance between fiction and reality. Like you
can believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And I've seen actors. So I went to Beverly Hills Playhouse, and the teacher there had seen me and stuff and liked me, and he was sort of asking me to become part of their actor's studio there.
Yeah.
I was like, let me check it out. And I remember watching a scene from Glass Menagerie, and the guy and girl, these gorgeous actors, they were not connecting. And he says to the guy, he says, what are you using here to get in? And the guy goes, my high school dance. And the guy goes, you're not smelling the gym enough. You need to smell that gym. What were the lights like? Now, great exercise. Mm-hmm. The most gorgeous woman I've ever seen is right across from him. And the problem was he wasn't able to look at her and want her.
Yeah.
And the acting teacher had him go all the way to a high school dance to find what was right in front of him. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Every answer I have, if you and I are playing a scene, is here.
Yeah.
I know what I want.
Yeah.
That's script. You know, if you don't know how to read a script, we can talk about it. But learn that. But once you know what you need in that moment, everything comes off the person opposite you once action's called, and anything you've planned around a backstory or whatever will get in your way.
Yeah, that idea of like going back into a high school dance when this person's here, to me that feels like you and I are communicating right now. But I could take up my phone, text you the information that I want to relay. It could go to fucking space arrive at your phone. It's not going to make our communication better.
It won't make it better. It's good when it's the only thing available.
Yes.
And the one thing, like at 2 a.m. on a Friday night when we're late and we know we're going to see the sunrise, I'll use whatever works.
Yeah.
And you know, for people who are technique hounds, because I am, I don't use technique anymore. But technique is what I can go to when it's just not happening. So look, I walk in here. We're about to shoot a scene for $1 million movie or 10 million, whatever, doesn't matter. This is just the next 5 minutes in our life.
Right.
When we separate it, we deserve to be made fun of. It's just, again, accent, hats, cool. But it's just the next 5 minutes in our lives. And when we go, oh, I need to exit that, do a different thing, come back, those veils start to show up. And so if this is something I'm incapable of doing for any reason, let's say, you know, my dad being sick is weighing on me and I'm having trouble, then I might go to technique. Sure. And be like, Shaun, you need to take a sec, imagine your way into this first moment. Use your dad if you need as an imaginative springboard, because you have truth around your feelings around them, as long as it's in the ballpark of the vibe of the first moment. But the technique is for when it's not working. If you and I get in a grappling match right now, my goal is to beat you.
Yeah.
My goal is not to do this to your ankle, then this to your knee, then this. That's the way we learn how to beat someone. Same with acting. And I always say this with Meisner, because Meisner is real popular right now. This goes back to the idea of operating system versus tool. Meisner is not a style, it's a tool. Yeah. And I know too many Meisner actors who, because of what the tool opens up in them, for the first time in their life, they're having big impulses. not manufactured ones, in class. And they're crying and they're slamming a table and they're like making out and all that wonderful impulsive shit that can happen with that work. But then they think that's what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
The second you go, this is what it needs to look like, it's what I call the old way of working. You may as well just be in a high school play trying to energy your way into a version of a feeling as opposed to living an experience.
Yeah.
And so the technique is available whenever I'm away from just having lived experience with you to remind myself how to do it as a tool, not as a way to go, if I don't bang this table, we didn't do it.
Yeah. The more that I teach and the more that I learn as an actor, the more I come to realize that the techniques that we're taught in so many ways are taught to us so that we can meet ourselves. And once you have met yourself, then the job is being present with somebody else. And you know, that so much of how actors, whether it's substitution or whether it's like, you know, you're not smelling the gym enough, to me that's just like square pegs into round holes when all of the length and breadth of human experience is available in front of you if you are willing to meet it. And if you are unable to meet it, then you may need these techniques to teach yourself what you contain, who you are, and how to show up.
It's a version of permission, you know?
100%. Permission, and I think knowing oneself. Like, I wish that all of the people that taught me in theater school, though I learned so much interesting stuff, I really wish that at least one of them was like, listen, guys, you're 18. We're just teaching you that these things exist within you. You don't know shit about about yourself.
Peter Wilde, who was the head of acting at George Brown for a long time, and a very difficult guy, he just on me nonstop, said, you don't know how to act, you don't want to act, at best you'll look decent in a suit, that would be the extent of your career. I dropped out, not because of that, because I ran into Kate Lynch, the voice teacher, a month later, and she's like, how's it going, Shaun? This was after second year, and they're like, and we invite you back for third year. I was like, she goes, how's it going, Shaun? I said, not good, Kate. She goes, what's up? I said, not just some of you, but literally some of the guest artists who I worked really well with venged on me in my report card. Like, I don't get any of this. She goes, Shaun, and Kate was lovely. She goes, we don't know how to teach you. She goes, there's some actors who they need a skills, like tools. Because you got all the tools, but no one knows how to integrate it for you. Because they weren't wrong that my work was getting worse. However, and I've talked about this in so many interviews, like the break you down to build you up paradigm, they didn't have the tools to build back up. So all they did was spend 2 years breaking down. So I felt like hell.
It's like the military, if at the end of it you're just really bad at fighting.
Well, that's just it. So I run into Peter Wilde about 4 or 5 years later. Now, if you know Peter, he's like, oh, how, Mr. Nyback, ooh, interesting. Ooh, dressing like this, are we now? Like, that's his 100% demeanor 100% of the time. I see him at a fringe tent. I'm with Phil Riccio, and I'm on a couple TV shows at this point. And he walks up, he goes, oh, Mr. Benson, I can't turn on my TV without seeing you. And I was like, yeah, things have been good, Peter. And I'm a little leery, right? Because he wasn't real nice to me. I did learn a lot from him, though. Very Whiplash type vibe they created in that theater school in the 90s. I want to talk about that in a sec. Because I miss it. I think I don't teach that way, I can't. But there is something about that edge of abuse where you're either going to fucking rise or you're going to disappear. And I do think there's a hint of that missing, but I'm not the guy to bring it back because I don't like it. But I miss it. I don't think it was healthy, but I miss it. In any case, Peter leans forward. Phil's like, hey, I'll leave you guys to talk. He walks away. And Peter, who I've never seen in 5 years, not like this, leans forward and in the most normal voice goes, there's not really much we can teach you, right? Like, all we can do is help keep you loving it, and then you got to figure it out for yourselves, eh? And I was like, yeah. And then he sees somebody, goes, oh, David, and dances off. It was the most, and David Rotenberg did the same thing with me. When I was a young actor, worked with David Rotenberg, it's all, this is how it is, this is how you got to be, this is your hit, this is, all that stuff. Very charismatic. And then after I shot a year or two on a TV show, I went by to pick up a friend from class, and he's just like doing the thing, the teacher swag. And then after he goes, none of this is like it's on set, is it? Like, it's just, there's nothing I can teach you that's really like set, eh? I was like, no, it's not really like this. And it was amazing to have these two, at the time, highest level teachers in Toronto, drop their voice and go, what the f*** to do? And I'm like, you could tell us this. You create a dynamic. Now, granted, we do it willingly. We're over 18, we're f***ing adults, and I actually don't believe too much in abuse of dynamics unless it's sexual or an overt offer of power.
Right.
Whereas when a teacher who's not telling you they can get you a job, not telling you that they're gonna, make sweet love to you, they're literally just your teacher, and we confer upon them the power of gods. I do think, 18-year-olds are really fucking young, but I do think we have to take responsibility and go, that was part of my path. I made my theater school teachers new gods, and that was on me. These were, for the most part, with respect, actors who hadn't thrived and pivoted into teaching, and they were doing their best.
Yeah, a lot of theater. Yeah, like most of the people in my theater school, same. It's
But
like
these were just adults who were just named David and Peter, and we're like, what am I gonna do?
It's like realizing your parents aren't God.
That's
like,
all it is.
It's that like I feel like so much of becoming an adult is just the evolving understanding that everybody who has ever taught you that you have admired is just a guy.
Dude, my dad, before I came along, was just a guy named Eugene.
Yeah.
Just bopping around.
Yeah.
Just,
found out he was having a kid and was probably f***ing terrified.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's a failed God for the rest of his life. Unless we do the work and we unpack it. Because even those theater school teachers, like Peter's passed on, but I'd love to run into Peter. I did run into him once because he did the Zones of Silence, which is the one exercise he taught, other than theater history, which was genius, to know context. But it's so close to Meisner. And I remember saying, Peter, I've been doing Meisner. And he's like, that's wonderful work. And I was like, why the fuck, where was that?
Yeah.
You're the head of acting.
And in a lot of cases too, I think they're hamstrung by the institution.
I think so too.
And it's interesting going back to that concept of like abuse. So here's the thing. One of the best teachers that I've ever had, his name was Jeffrey Dunn. And he was the best because he was the best and he was the worst. He was the head of musical theater at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy where I went. We were in second semester. We're all like barely fucking people. And he assigned us for an entire semester nothing but material from Broadway flops, catastrophic flops.
Okay.
And then just spent the entire semester berating us for not being able to make this work when the fucking Broadway cast couldn't make it work. The shows.
I actually love this exercise.
I loved it too. Well, I hated it at the time, but I go back, like I look back on it, and I'm like, there's so many things that I learned from him. The biggest one was fucking resilience. The second one was the willingness to be like, I'm going to keep at this because that's why, which is extremely useful. It's a bit of an atom bomb. You like eventually you want to stop bombing Japan. Like you can't that's why your way through life because you're gonna leave.
I don't trust anyone who doesn't have a moment of it.
This is the thing, and it also taught me in a lot of ways the type of person that I didn't want to be, which is a very valuable lesson.
Right.
Not because he was a bad person, but because he was the type of person I didn't want to be.
That's right.
And
that's why I can't teach the way that I miss.
You can't teach the way you miss.
I miss that you're do better, walk away, whiplash thing.
Yeah.
Your time's off, but I'm not going to tell you how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Are you dragging or you push? But I'm so glad I got steeled in that fire. And we even talk about this with martial arts. Like the 70s, 80s, and even 90s was very much a blood and guts era. We didn't wear pads. Oof. You break your nose fighting, you just put it back and keep going. And it's not the best way to do it.
Yeah, probably not.
But I'm really glad I did it.
But so much of life, like life is not the pursuit of the ideal way to do it.
That's right. I love that you said that.
And it's such a misguided way of thinking about existence.
It's like people who shop for gear more than they just start the thing.
Yes.
I had a girlfriend who wanted to do a dog walking business. Mm-hmm. She spent 6 weeks trying to come up with her logo. I was like, you've never walked a dog though. Just go walk dogs and the business will form and the name will emerge. She's like, no, I gotta brand it this and that. And she never walked dogs. She didn't like walking dogs. She liked the idea of walking dogs.
Yeah.
And the way to gear up.
And this, like, I think so many people and I think so many actors they like the idea of living life. Like, i.e. they are in pursuit of the ideal. The struggleless, the non-bloodied knuckles, everybody taught me the way that I needed at that time, as opposed to I am entering into a meat grinder of life, and I am in control of what it forms me into.
Well, and also not in control of what it forms me into. I'm in control of how I process it.
Yes.
To some level.
Yeah.
But because it's so random, I don't know. Like, it's, to me, I always love the Steve Jobs 2005 Stanford address where he says you can't connect the dots forward. You know, he dropped out of college, but he didn't want to stop going to class, so he started going to typesetting class because he loved typesetting.
Right.
Years later, that's why Mac interfaces were way more attractive, because of a typesetting class he dropped into for no good reason.
Right.
And he goes, I never could have planned that forward and been like, in 5 years, this will revolutionize how we look at a computer instead of that black, green, ugly thing. So, although I think it has retro charm, but I think that's a bit of what I really go to, is like, I have no idea what today's going to offer me in relation to what I need tomorrow.
Right.
All I know is I can live it as fully as possible while trying to get paid, trying to get laid, and then we'll learn lessons that we wouldn't even fathom we needed to know.
Yeah.
You know, I just turned 50, and my God, was that difficult for me. I didn't think it was gonna be. 40 was no big deal. 45 was no big deal.
In about a month.
Yeah, 50 felt significant, and I think a couple of my friends who I talked to who are a little older, they're like, 50's pretty real because you can see closer to the end than the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
40, all the men in my side live over 80.
Yeah,
so you're just like, whatever.
You're middle act too.
Right. As soon as I'm hitting 50, I'm kind of like, oh, I do have sore knees now, and I do have gray hair now, and I do have a lot of wrinkles that don't go away when I sit, and I love it all. I wouldn't trade for any other age. That's a fact. Assuming you couldn't overlay your wisdom, that would be different. But I wouldn't go back to being 38 or 42. They were great age, but I wouldn't do it. But that's the whole point, is I wouldn't do it because I always think of this life, and I hope we all can think of it on some version of this. This is the best novel I've ever read, and I'm not even 2/3 through. So when that hero, and I hope we all think of ourselves as the hero, non-egoically, but that we're on this journey. You know,
yeah, if you can't champion
let's
yourself,
get back
then can you
home,
champion?
baby. On the white horse. And we can't know what we needed that we picked up here. That's the joy of the story, is that cudgel sack. Oh my God, that has the thing that helps me defeat the dragon.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I had it before.
Yeah.
Even these things, and especially, and this goes back to what I think is the most important stuff we're talking about, whether it's sobriety or childhood wounds, we get to turn them into superpowers, but we don't know when or how. And there's a humility in that.
Yeah. And very seldom are superpowers revealed to us under no duress. And to like not in a
sentence.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, not in a go out and cultivate suffering. Like there's plenty of actors who are like, I need to suffer. So
I did. I wanted to be Sean Penn and have that edge.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
It is a trap.
If you're 22 and you've never left your parents' house and you sleep with your stuffed animals, that's what we'll hire you for. Be that.
Yeah.
Don't go seek a street life unless you want it.
Yeah.
You know, people always say, should I move to LA? I'm like, well, do you want to live in LA? They're like, well, I think it might be best. Live where you want to live.
Yes.
That will be best.
Yes.
Especially in the self-tape world.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to live in LA unless you want to live in LA. There's a lot of great reasons to live there.
Yeah.
But not because you think you need to be there for your career.
Yeah.
Not in 2025.
No, not in the completely decentralized industry.
No, but I think I took you off track with the.
No, I don't think so. I mean, like it's interesting. I keep getting this. Like, it's easy to turn hardship into injustice, and I think that is kryptonite for so many actors.
Yep.
Now, it's not to say that like listen, genuinely bad happens to everybody, and it sucks. Like, it's not to say that it doesn't, but I think right now there's a lot of narrative around creating stories about this shouldn't have happened to me, as opposed to this did, and how can this?
Amen.
How is this a part of me? Because it is. Like, whether you want it to be or not, it has
Yeah.
become a part of you, and you can either accept that and operate from it
Yeah.
and pour it into the structure of story, or you cannot.
Yep.
And to me, that is the actors that I'm working with, the actors that I admire, the actor that I hope I can be from moment to moment. They're the ones that are doing that. They are showing up authentically into the structure of the story with the person in front of them. Let's fucking go.
Well, whether it's a fearlessness or a courage, it's the same thing. But it takes one or the other to truly work in the moment, right? To truly work in the moment.
Courage or fearlessness?
Well, yeah, because you either don't have fear or you have fear and you're courageous anyways. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
But like, I've gone into auditions, multiple, where I just didn't even look at the sides. And they'd be like, you ready to go? I'm like, yep. This happened with me on a Heartland. And I was just like, she goes, great, rolling. And I just stood there. And then I looked down and it says like, Aidan Gilson, Australian horse groom to the prince. And I just go, right this way, Prince. That was literally the first line. And then we'd go through and I'm like, right, she's a rotten egg, me. Right, do this thing. She's like, this is really interesting, Shaun. Can you do another take and just be a little more deferential? I'm like, of course, of course. And then I do it. She goes, nice. I booked the part. Then the director calls. He goes, hey, Shaun. This is a fun story. I'm going to tell it. Then he calls. He goes, hey, Shaun. Australian? Solid. Do you have any other accents? I said, I can do German and Irish pretty well. He goes, great. Send me 1 page of lines of both. Calls back. He goes, we love the Irish. So I go out and I do a recurring Heartland in Irish.
Okay.
Because I wanted to experiment with how I did with zero preparation, zero planning, on the spot. And I've always contended, partly through Meisner, but also through just auditions in general, that if you and I are having a real conversation, yes, it's being recorded, so we know it's a construct.
Yeah.
But we're having this conversation, so we both know what's going on. And then I go, and I just took a sec to look at my lines and come back. Nobody cares.
Nobody gives a shit.
Nobody gives a single shit.
Yeah.
And what a lot of young actors, including me when I was younger, do is you'll think you need to arc this perfect performance and hit this moment and hit this moment. Oh God, it's hell.
Yeah.
Like what torture that audition must be, because you can only be imperfect. But if I have this paper in my hand, and in this case I didn't even know what I was going to say, that was the joy of the moment-to-moment experiment.
Yeah.
The fun fact is 10 years later I was auditioning for a cowboy show, and I didn't like my part. It looked just not great. So I said no, I said no, I said no. And then they said, look, they really would like you for this, at least to read. I said, okay, fine. Irish, I do it, I send it. Turns out that director from Heartland was directing them. And when I got to set, he goes, Shaun, I was like, David, nice to see you. He goes, well, I saw your name on a list and I said, can we get him? Because I know he can do this Irish. And that's been my Billy the Kid 3-season role, which I at first didn't even want to do, but it grew into a much bigger role than I thought.
Yeah.
The point is that an experiment for myself to see how I thrive, not even under pressure, just under uncertainty.
Right.
Because I believe that's the most fundamental door we have to walk through if we're going to be fearless and courageous.
Yeah.
If I say at this point I'm going to do this and this point, there's no uncertainty.
Yeah.
There's just me executing at you,
not
being with you, which is my greatest fear. Vulnerability in the moment. So I was like, you better lean into this if you ever want to get good at this. Including as a human. And so then years later, I've got a job that spanned 4.5 years and has paid me quite nicely on the heels of a reputation built through an accent that wasn't even the audition accent for something I experimentally didn't even read the lines for.
It's fascinating because it feels like one, that's just like a baller story.
It's bonkers and baller. I like that.
Like
they're not all good stories, but that one worked out.
That's just top drawer. But to me, what's so cool is that like this concept of fearlessness and courage, like to me, it sounds as though one day you were like, all right, I'm going to choose courage on this. This is interesting to me. And what it did is it grew into fearlessness. And I could be wrong. And I'm not saying you're fearless in all of your life.
Not all of my life, but when it comes to action, it's digital. Let's rip it. Let's see what happens. And sorry to interrupt, but I do want to say that when that works, and I want to talk about this real quick after, but when that works, it grows the trust.
With self.
With self.
Yeah.
So then I'll be in the middle of a big take with 50 extras and we're out in the cold, and my body will just go, say this right now. And I'll just riff something. And afterwards, it'll become like a quotable line from the piece, or that was brilliant. It was also insane. We have to cut it, but please keep tossing that shit out as it comes to you.
Yes.
And I've been getting that over the last 15 years of my career as I've trusted more, and then it works, and then you trust more. If you think about these actors we adore, not everyone, they're not coming in to be a good student and get an A. They're coming in, and again, if you're younger and you don't know what this feels like, but if you've worked a bit on set, you'll know what I'm doing. They walk in and they look around and they're like, have we decided what we're doing here? Because I think it'd be cool if I start on that couch. And the director will be like, I'd like you to start over here. And if you're a good collaborator, you're like, okay, not married to it.
Yeah.
But if you offer something,
yeah,
and they're like, you know what? We haven't thought about it. Why don't you start on the couch? We'll have them come in. We'll see how it feels.
Yeah.
Now you're in collaboration. And that goes back to this, the coffee and a chat.
Yeah.
Now, I'll happily do what you tell me if you're paying me, because that's my job.
Yeah.
But if I'm there to just execute a good student version of what's on the page, I will be a good guest lead for your show.
Yeah.
But if I come without trying to be clever, but I genuinely am just here to have these conversations. And born out of that, with trust, comes the odd impulse, moment, not the slamming table, because that's style is insistence, but maybe. And even if it doesn't, there's always this chance it could.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you find yourself being written into a recurring.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they start to go, is he available season 3? We're a little interested.
Yeah.
And to me, that's all about not necessarily fearless, but also courageous of just, what's the worst that can happen if you toss an idea, even if you're 18 on the call sheet, don't hold up the day, don't insist. When they go, no, I hear you, but we're not going to do that, go, great.
Yeah.
As long as you're heard, what a gift.
Yeah.
You know, no one's owed even being heard by their boss.
This is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got 5 in a row that week that went that way.
No shit.
I went into one where the director was like, are you ready to do the scenes? And I had just not booked a lead for the same casting director, so I was mad at them.
Yeah.
So I said, what scene? And he goes, the scenes we sent you. And I said, I just shrugged. And I'm standing with 3 producers and a director for a film. Yeah. And Jason Knight, who was so sweet, goes, I'm sorry, I must not have sent Shaun the sides. Now, I will with myself as an experiment. I won't with another person.
Yeah.
So I said, Jason, I want to be really clear. You sent me the email. It did have the sides in it. Not your fault. So now the room's really confused.
Yeah.
And I just went, how much longer are you going to be here? They're like 20 more minutes. There's only 2 people after you. I was like, okay. So I went and I learned the monologue. It was a 2-page monologue to camera.
Yeah.
I just went, I'm good at learning lines. And I went and I did it. And I walked in without paper and they're like, and I just did it. And I got the part. And it was a way to just play. Now, are we rolling or not?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We were rolling on that the whole time he was talking, right?
It's fine if you want to use that. I won't name the person, but one of the best actors I know crumbles if they try and work this way.
Right.
They can't.
It's not for everybody.
That's right. And I really want to stress that when I say these things, it's not egoic, it's factual about what works for me.
Right.
If you drop me into the middle, if someone called and said, Marvel movie, $20 million, poster shoot today, you're replacing so-and-so tomorrow, all that would happen to me, I did a joke about this with the hero's journey, because you know in the hero's journey where it's always like, you're the chosen one, and they're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're the chosen one. I'm like, thank God, where have you been?
Time you figured it out.
Yes. And that's how I would feel if that happened. You could drop me into a scene tomorrow, give me 5 pages of sides, and I'd be like, great.
Yeah.
Now, would it be perfect? No. But it would be fucking great.
Perfect isn't the job.
It's
Perfect's
not
the
the
editor's job. That's the whole different thing. So,
amen.
And the thing, the concept of trust, this is something that, like, I think I've got a whole bunch of actors right now who I would say are like that I work with that are going from intermediate to advanced. The way I think about this is like you can be an intermediate level actor and you can be the lead of a series. Like I always say, like George Clooney when he was on ER compared to Michael Clayton was an intermediate actor comparatively. But like the entire structure of the way that I'm talking to them is about like, listen, this is just about cultivating self-trust now. It's about redefining for yourself how to understand this is how it feels and this is good and I trust myself to lean into my instincts and impulses. It's
a joy, but again,
transformative.
I just want to make sure this is clear, because I do think a lot of young actors will watch and benefit from this. If that doesn't work for you, don't do it.
Right.
It's an available way to work that I believe in, and when I'm teaching Meisner, I'm basically teaching a way to be able to do that.
Right.
But if it doesn't work for you on the day, you train hard, you fight easy. Technique is not there to bind you. It's not a new tool to beat yourself over the head with, including a technique of me that day having no technique.
Yeah.
Because that really was an extreme example of experimenting with my technique.
Right.
Can I be in the moment?
Yeah.
Can I listen? Can I speak from where I am without even knowing what that is until 1 second before?
Right.
And I've done exercises with students. When I was at Playhouse West and they taught emotional preparation, it had quotes around it, and it was a special class, and you could only go when you'd been there a while. Great class.
Yeah.
And the teacher would talk you through this real long way. And over time, I'm like, yeah, but even the way he talks you through an emotional preparation only connects with 60% of the people in the room's imagination.
Right.
So I remember one night with a group of students, some of them, their first ever acting session, like they haven't even been acting 6 weeks. And I would just put them up and I'd say, listen, we're all going to do the same exercise. You're going to be having a nice time, and then you're going to get a phone call giving you the worst news you could imagine. Now, just to be clear, you're not showing us your reaction. You're having the conversation. So you'll literally be like, hey, what's going on, Orm? Sorry, what? What? No, hold on. Like, and just have it. Hear the other person. Don't show us anything.
Yeah.
God, with my dad right now.
I know. Yeah, I'm watching it happen in real time.
But this is what happened with every student, Doug. Every student, knowing the exercise, watching people go up in front of them who are series leads, just tears streaming down. They'd go up and they'd be like, I can't do this. I'm like, nothing has to happen. Just have the conversation. Every student broke wide open, not as the goal. The goal of breaking wide open isn't tears. The goal is to have the conversation in real time, because that's the ultimate vulnerability.
Yes.
And so for me these are people who had no concept of what they were going to do until 1 second before, go have the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's all I was trying to do in that. But again, if on the day you need to have beats and posts and you need to decide you're going to yell at the end, do it.
Yeah.
There's no rules in this.
Yeah, there's no right or
These
wrong.
are just fun ways to free ourselves.
Yes.
But if it becomes a new bondage of I should be able to be more free, then let go of that one too.
Yeah.
No new paradigms.
Yeah.
No new abandon the concept of a new paradigm itself is limiting.
Yeah.
No paradigms.
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
None of it matters.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in some, go blow up a building, or maybe do a la Fight Club. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Because the more we can shed all of it, the more this can be the thing.
Yeah.
And then when they call action, there's no difference between that and the other.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And listen, we're running out of time, and we got to bring this thing into land. And I think that's actually a really beautiful place to end
take
it. Shaun, this is like, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I was really looking forward to this conversation because I genuinely didn't know what was going to come of it. I feel like I'm in such a privileged position that this is like the first truly real long conversation we have ever had.
It is.
And to be able to have it in such an honest, connected way with you really means the world to me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Doug. What I want to say about this as a podcast in general, anywhere you'd have started would have led us to a whole different hour and a half.
Yeah.
And thank you for not making this a this, then this, then this, because truly, like, if we just started over with a new toss on your behalf as an opener, it'd be a whole different chat, and that's a delight.
Totally. I agree.
Thanks.
I agree. Man, thank you for taking the time. I so appreciate
pleasure.
you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Cool. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you for still being here at the end of this whole thing. If you want to support this podcast and help it grow, liking, subscribing, wherever you're finding us, whether this is YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're getting your podcasts, 5-star ratings, commenting, sharing with your friends, these things make a huge difference. Follow us on social media, Nyback Act. If you really want to help support the show, head on over to the Patreon. There's a bunch of extra stuff up there, monthly blog posts, like a lot of my online acting courses are over there for a small subscription, and it's a really cool place. If you're liking what we're doing here and you want to really support us, that goes a really long way. I am excited for the next episode of this thing too, so turn on the notification button and go be people.